About half an hour to an hour ago, and has been making its way to Washington, D.C. We're joined by Rina Shah as we watch those pictures and watch the Trump plane coming into land. Rina Shah, she's a political analyst and a former senior aide to two Republican members of Congress. Rina, thank you so much for joining us. Interesting, as a former aide to two Republican members of Congress, what are your thoughts as you watch the former Republican president coming into land to be indicted for another criminal charge, federal charge?
Well, my first thoughts are about justice in these United States. And I know that justice isn't possible if accountability doesn't come first. So today's a great day to see the former president arraigned on these charges, because it shows that nobody is above the law. And that's something that you hear a lot from a political person who believes in putting country over party, again, principles over politics. And this is the kind of moment which really kind of takes my breath away, I must admit. I hear many fellow Republicans calling it a dark day for democracy. Well, I think on the flip, if Donald Trump were not held accountable for his actions on January 6, 2021, when he sat in the seat of commander-in-chief, as the leader of the free world, the former leader of the free world, we are really in dark territory if we didn't see him held accountable. So I think justice needs to prevail. It will prevail. Again, he's not been charged guilty. He's innocent until proven if. And that is one thing he's really relying on. Another thing he's also relying on is that the wheels of justice do move slow here. And that's why it took so long to get to this day. The facts needed to be assembled, and this needed to happen in a very concentrated, very thoughtful manner. And I think the Department of Justice did do that.
We don't know what the former president is saying. He hasn't said anything on camera, but he has been using social media. As we know, Donald Trump does use social media, posting that he's talking about, I'm going to Washington, D.C. to be arrested for having challenged a corrupt, rigged and stolen election. It is a great honour because I'm being arrested for you. What does that mean if you dig down into the mind of Donald Trump?
7 years of hearing those words, corrupt, rigged, witch hunt. My gosh, it's almost like we just cannot escape hearing the same message over and over. It feels like Groundhog Day. The Republican Party would be so much better off without Donald Trump. Its leaders at its highest levels know that. But what can they do? They can't hold back somebody that's been told by many Republican voters in flyover states, in our Midwestern states, and in places of America, in parts of America that feel as if they've been forgotten. Those people say this is a man with a powerful personality. This is a man who's actually been fun, they've called him. I think it's certainly a crisis for the Republican Party to see Donald Trump continue to poll well. But I would caution against looking at the polls right now. You do get a lot of extreme, sort of most fervent, ardent supporters of the former president coming out to rallies, to events where they'll boo people like former Congressman Will Hurd, who's thrown his hat into the ring here in the GOP presidential primary. Will Hurd said just in Iowa this past weekend that Donald Trump's running for president in order to avoid jail time, something to that effect. Those weren't his exact words. And he got booed for that. But look, there are many moderate Republicans, centrist Republicans, people who even identify as independent now in the era of Donald Trump, that feel that the Republican Party needs somebody else at its top, that this former president is too rife with problems, that he's not representative of any sort of values, of any kind of policy stances, that he stands only for himself. And so therefore, this is a process that needs to play itself out. I just pray that it's a process that plays out without any kind of political violence or anything of that sort that we saw on January 6, 2021.
Okay, Rina, we're watching the landing gear on Donald Trump's plane being lowered. So one can only assume that he has nearly come to the end of that particular section of the journey from the airport.